incredible flavours, even better stories. One pour, 10 minutes, Aussie bourbon lovers sharing bourbon with Australia. Here we go.
Lovely. What are we drinking today, Dave?
This is a Michter's small batch sour mash, and even more exciting than that, we're drinking it with some special guests.
Yeah, this is like a bucket list moment for us. On our podcast, we have some very, very special guests with us today, all the way from Kentucky.
That's it. Dan McKee, Master Distiller, and Andrea Wilson, Master of Maturation from Michter's. Cheers.
Welcome.
Hi everybody.
I guess we better get pouring.
That's it.
Oh,
that's it.
Love the pop. All right.
Pop's always the best bit.
We are pouring us up some lovely sour mash over here.
And tell us about this pour. What are we drinking? What is this? We love it, by the way.
Thank you very much. So this is Michter's original sour mash whiskey. It is not a bourbon by definition. It's not a rye by definition, but it does have corn, rye, and malted barley in it. It is produced by the sour mash process. All of our whiskeys are produced by the sour mash process, but it starts a little like a bourbon, finishes a little like a soft rye. Beautiful, elegant to drink, really nice honey and fruit, and just a lovely pour. It's 43% ABV. Super fun to drink, but it ties a little bit into the history of Michter. So I might let Dan talk a little bit about the history of the brand.
All right. Well, hi everyone. Thanks for having us. Excited, and nothing like waking up and having a nice pour of our original sour mash whiskey.
Bright early in the morning for you.
Cheers. Yeah.
Late at night.
Cheers. Yeah. I know it's dinner for you. It's breakfast for us. So.
Yeah.
No, it's very exciting. I'd also like to add one other thing about our original sour mash. It's one of our small batch products. Small batch to us is the equivalent of 20 full barrels, so truly small. And it's a requirement to have very high quality, consistent barrels to be able to do such small batches. So I think that's something special. So all of our releases are always going to be a single barrel, like our ryes and, some of our upper marks and so forth and barrel strengths. But when you see small batch, it's actually the equivalent of 20 full barrels, so truly small. So
yeah, and how is this one particularly linked to the Michter's history?
So for its history, it actually, namesake-wise, it's paying homage to when Michter's was located in the state of Pennsylvania. Their number one selling whiskey in the 1970s and 80s was also called the original sour mash whiskey. So this was our way of Kentucky Michter's paying homage to that time period. It's not the exact same recipe, but it's keeping in that tradition of not being a bourbon or a rye, the three grains not having a dominant. But, Michter's itself has a very long and rich history. It dates back to 1753, again, as a distillery in the state of Pennsylvania. It was located in Schaefferstown, Pennsylvania. John Schenck, a Swiss Mennonite farmer, began distilling rye whiskey. Rye would have been a predominant crop grown back then, so lots of rye whiskey was made. By the mid-1800s, the distillery from Schenck's was sold to Abraham Bomberger, so it became Bomberger's Distillery up until the introduction of Prohibition in 1919. Once Prohibition ended, by 1934, the distillery reopened, and by the 1950s, a gentleman named Lou Foreman eventually became the owner, and he renamed the distillery using parts of his two sons' name, Michael and Peter, so he combined them to get that Michter's, okay? By 1989, though, the American whiskey industry was struggling. It was in what we would say a so-called depression. Clear spirits were in favor, and unfortunately, the Michter's distillery went bankrupt and abandoned the trademarks and essentially was lost to history. So now we have our Kentucky Michter's. So in the 1990s, our current ownership, we're a family-owned company, the Meliocco brothers. There's three brothers, Joe Meliocco being one of the brothers. He's our president of Michter's. He was tasked with starting a whiskey company under our parent company, which is Chatham Imports. Again, same family that owns Chatham Imports. So they went through the process of acquiring the trademarks for Michter's. They were very familiar with Michter's because in the late 1970s, Joe was actually tasked with selling these little King Tut miniatures on the distribution sales side of it. And so as they were very familiar with the brand, they went through that again. They went through the process of acquiring the trademarks, and Joe was working with a very good friend and mentor at the time, Richard Dick Newman. He was the CEO of Austin Nichols, which was Wild Turkey back then. Dick had a lot of distillery experience from running Old Taylor and many other distilleries. He recommended to Joe that he should resurrect the brand to Kentucky. Not that you can't make great whiskey in Pennsylvania, but Kentucky had a lot of resources, natural, our water, our limestone water, our climate, but also distillers like myself, Andrea Wilson, who's our COO and Master of Maturation, but also all the team members behind the scenes that know, all the regulations and many other parts that make this whole operation work. So thankfully for us, they decided to come to Kentucky. So
Yeah.
And so that kind of led us into our journeys of what we call the 3 phases. Would you like to continue from there?
Well, I would like to see if Dave Helen had any questions to talk about this beautiful sour mash, because we could talk all day.
Well, it's delicious. It's delicious. And we have to admit, and we don't have favorites because we love all, American whiskeys of all different flavors, but we do have a very soft spot for Michter's, and we like quite a lot of your expressions. We're big fans, yeah.
In the bourbon cabinet at our house that is all dedicated to Michter's.
And when you said honey, I feel like the honey is lovely and almost like a stone fruit kind of flavor that's coming through on it. It's so lovely and soft. Are there variations between the different batches when you're doing small batches of the 20 barrels or less? Do you get some variations through it, or you're able to keep your consistency all the way through?
It's a really great question, because part of the culture of Michter's is the focus of quality. So, and it's not just making a good product, it's making a consistent, repeatably good product, so that if you're spending your hard-earned money on a bottle of Michter's, it's going to taste like you expect it to every single time we make it. And that's a testament to the discipline that we operate under here, and the accuracy and the precision to which our team is trained to make sure that, we're not only checking the specifications, on a bottle of our product, this is the sour mash, but it's also to make sure that it tastes like the sour mash. So our team actually tastes everything before it's bottled, just like a chef would taste a dish before they would serve it to you. And I think that's a really important part of the culture here. So little nuances of difference if you get into some of our single barrel products, and you'll see little tiny variations, but you're not going to see, big dramatic shifts in the product profile. That's not us. That's not what we're trained to do here.
Yeah. And your roles as distiller and master of maturation, how are they different, and where do they how are they similar?
Where does the line start and end for you?
Go ahead, Dan. I know what you're dying to say over there. Go ahead.
I think it's very blurry, honestly, but no, we're very fortunate here to have a great team. First of all, I will always draw attention to that. This is never about me or just Andrea. It really does. 10 years ago, I was employee number 8. Andrea was number 7. And now between our 3 locations, we're just under 100 employees. So it's fantastic to see the growth. So, and we have so many talented individuals, Matt Bell, our VP of production, distiller, Captain Onan, our director of forecasting, blending, Marcus Neiman, our director of R&D, and so many others to name. But it does take all of us. But I do oversee the distilling, and Andrea, would oversee the maturing, and of course we overlap. And then again, there's just so many different parts of the business that, we're a flatter organization. So all of us, all the team members wear many hats. But, there's anything that I'm doing in the distillery, we're going to talk with Andrea. Andrea anything in the maturing, the team comes together, we talk about it. It's not just one individual. Plus, we have such great support from ownership. There's a very hands-on approach also. But the great thing about Michter's is, what separates Michter's from others. And we always like to talk about 6 key production techniques that really define what Michter's whiskey is about. And in those 6 production techniques, not all of them are the most efficient, or maybe they just plain cost more. But if we can show to ownership and the family that it will increase the quality of the whiskey, they're willing to do it. And that's one of the things that really sets us apart.
I think the goal every day is to make the best American whiskey that we can. Yeah. And, people will judge that certainly all over the world. But our goal is genuinely every day, if we know something that we can do to make it better, we're going to do that. I always tell people, maturation, distillation and maturation go hand in hand. It's a long series of chemical processes that get to this beautiful product in the glass. And it takes a lot of attention to detail. It takes real discipline. There are a million things that can go wrong, in the course of the process, but it's the job of the team to look after everything and make sure that that doesn't happen. And I think that, when the distillate comes over from the distillery, it really becomes a bit of an art project at that point, because you have this beautiful, what we call white dog, and it's clear. It has beautiful floral and fruit and some graininess and beautiful sweetness and some oiliness, and it's lovely. But now what do you want to do with it? What do you want it to ultimately become? And now you have to look at that barrel and you have to think about what is the potential that you want to unlock from that barrel? Do you want some caramel? Do you want some spice? Do you want some chocolate? Do you want some honey? What do you want from that barrel? And then you design the barrel accordingly to help you achieve that. And as Dan was speaking, the 6 production techniques, some of them do sit on the maturing side of the business. And one of the significant things that Michter's does is we naturally season and air dry all of our wood for at least 18 months, sometimes up to 5 years. And that wood is sitting outside. It's not only physically drying, but it's chemically and microbiologically changing. So even it will grow fungi on it. That fungi will produce enzymes that will metabolize different wood compounds and give way to beautiful aromatics. Winemakers have been doing those kinds of things for a long time. We toast our barrels before we char them to really break down the extractable compounds that we want that equate to those beautiful flavors that I was just talking about. And then, one of the biggest signatures of Michter's is the low alcohol strength that we go into the barrel. So under United States law, you can actually go into the barrel with your distillate up to 62.5 ABV. We enter into wood at about 51.5 ABV. So it's very low by industry standard. And so what that does, if you think about the distillate coming over to a tank, and then we add a bunch of water that's been through the reverse osmosis process to drop that alcohol strength down, then we barrel. What that really means is we're going to be about 75% whiskey in the barrel and about 25% water. That water is a powerful hydrolyzer for a lot of these beautiful extractable compounds that we've worked so hard to have that barrel delivered to us. So you ultimately, we're looking to create a rich, smooth, easy drinking experience. That's what we want, and that's our house style for all the Michter's products that we make that are all on the shelf behind me. I'm looking at them, I'm like, oh, they're all right there. Yeah. But that's part of the joy of drinking Michter's, and we want it to warm you here in, the back of your throat, but not give you heartburn, in your chest. Yeah. That's not the experience that we're going for. And having that water up front be part of the barrel chemistry is really a key component to creating that smooth, rich, easy drinking experience. And those are, probably 3. I'll let you talk about the other 3 in a bit, but I think...
You see how it works?
You see how it goes?
No, I just want everyone to see this. And obviously, we're just having fun banter here. But I always say to Andrea, why is it that I can give you this very beautiful, very high quality, flavorful distillate in, let's say 3 days, and you take anywhere from 5 to 30 plus years to do something with it? Well, now you know why.
I see it. Yeah. So good.
It's all about the process.
Andrea's exactly. I mean, there's, again, we can go on, and we have many more techniques to talk about, but these are definitely the things that, as there's, other whiskeys out there, again, what separates Michter's, what makes it special, and it's really the attention to detail and all these little steps along the way, because every step makes a difference with the whiskey.
Amazing. And it seems like you do things the hard way for a really good reason, because what ends up in your glass at the end of the day is really beautiful whiskey that drinks beautifully. The water is going to get added later anyway if you're using the other techniques, and the smoothness that you get from having it aged in the barrel gives it that, well, you guys know better than us, but gives it that beautiful smoothness and the much better drinking experience. Yeah. It's getting the flavors from the barrel as well.
It allows the whiskey to become really much richer and fuller just by having that, that time with the barrel instead of just plain water at the end. I mean, that's 50% more water that had no influence and going straight into the bottle. And so we know that's what helps separate us.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I think what Dan's referring to is if you enter, we've actually done the work on this, that if you enter into the barrel at 62.5% ABV versus the 51.5%, and then, we age them and then we get ready for bottling, we would have to add over 50% more water to get to the same bottling strength than versus the lower entry proof or strength. We come out at lower strength, so we don't have to add as much water to get to the same bottling strength. So I always tell people you actually get more whiskey that took years to develop in the barrel in a bottle of Michter's, because we're not watering it down as much to get to bottling strength. So I think those are, real aspects of Michter's that have helped us really be successful, because the flavor profile, even for 43%, is just lovely. Like, there's richness there, there's complexity there. It's a beautiful pour. It's very elegant. And that's, what we want. That's the style. I'm born and raised in Kentucky, so I love all Kentucky bourbon. It's a big part of our heritage here, but at the end of the day, not everybody is doing it the same way. And I think that's really important. I think what Michter's is doing is a lot of very old sort of techniques that have gone away in the industry because of cost. And I think that's one of the things that we're most proud of, is that we work for a family and a team that really invests behind making the best quality whiskey that we can, whatever it is. If it's people, ingredients, equipment, we want to get the best that we can to try to have the best chance at making the best product that we can.
Yeah, and all that definitely comes through when you taste it.
Thank you.
And the great news for us in Australia is that we do have really good access to the US one small batch and the US one bourbon and the US one American whiskey. I know sometimes it's hard to get your hands on in different parts of the US, but we have great access to it here. So if you are in Australia listening to this and you're looking for a bottle, it's not too hard to track down in your local bottle shop. Thanks for sharing this with us. We're going to have you back on to talk about more pours soon. So thanks so much for joining us, Dan and Andrea. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.
Cheers. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you're connected with us on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and stay connected with us by clicking subscribe on your favourite podcast app.